Oh yeah, so it's gonna be another extra video because I interrupted the previous one. I didn't delete anything. I literally just noticed. I always keep checking. Right? I notice every time I flip, I keep checking if they didn't do that because they've hacked the phone. They hacked it frequently now, which is why I never bought it. If you ever wondered why I leave the phone watch really open there, they have full access to system features where they can put their fingers on the screen of my phone and it's several screenshots that's everywhere documented, right? Because I activated the tap on your touch thing, so you can see the taps on the screen. You can see all the fingers, so they can access to somehow hijack the phone remotely to tap on your screen. I don't think that the physical contact for this phone is a huge deal. It might be, and I should try to be careful. As I said, I'm going to even deal with like fingerprint feature and other things to make sure that they cannot access my phone while I'm asleep by assaulting my body and using my person. But for what it's worth, it's a simple enough thing to do, so it's boring to be doing it every day. But for what it's worth, and then I create a new password, so in the same time I change the password for one that I only use at night, and deactivate the fingerprint so they cannot access the phone normally. But would it make a difference? Again, they can do that remotely. In a place with no Wi-Fi, as you demonstrated already, with the phone having no SIM card, they can do that. So no 4G, presumably, unless they find a way to use free internet for all. Because that's essentially what it is. If they can access the phone through 4G, with the phone having no SIM card, which is the way they key into the 4G network, cellular data network, if you will, then they somehow crack the system in a way to have free internet, limited internet, right? The reality, right, cuts both ways. So if somehow they have connectivity into a phone in an empty space and there's nobody around me, presumably, phone towers will get there. I mean, if I put the SIM card, the phone has signal, so it's not like literally in the middle of nowhere. But there is no SIM card, and I restart the phone and I remove the battery at times these days, and then put the battery again. Nothing's running. Somehow it doesn't matter anyways. This is accessing the phone and in the moment. Sometimes picking up specific times to do that, right? So it ain't no way that is happening. Oh, by the way, first noticing on drugs coming down here, they'll be the torture drugs. Probably because they're not particularly happy about the things I'm saying. Just like this. So beautiful. This is what I mean by the accessing the phone. Except that those are drug crimes. It's coming straight from there where the breeze is coming from. Okay? Where most of the drugs come every day. So, let that be. So much so that now the wind slipped back. Like, I don't have a bag on me. First off, you see this very little breeze. And the wind is blowing that way for a second. And then it stopped. Immediately stopped. Now the wind is slipping again. You're going to see if it's going to change again. I'm going to document that for you. Oh yeah, and it's common trope for them, particularly these days, then stop throwing and then throw again as I finish talking and I stop playing a video game or watch something on YouTube. Or eating, particularly, is one of the moments they like to pray the most. Because they are little predators, and in fact, they also sexually degenerate. So, when you hear predator, you think about something sexual. And yeah, they're there as well, just in a different way. As I said, there were several times I was watching porn, including here, and there will be creeps just lurking, showing up on those motorbikes, which I'm quite sure might have more than just me in relation to drugs and drug deliveries. But as far as and they'll be aware of law enforcement. Law enforcement will know all the details of that, just like they would in other countries. Except in other countries, you have several times traffic stops. Those things are almost like a red flag for that, so much so that criminals have been using bikes, like actual bikes, bicycles, and other things to try to drag away attention, because those things are being stopped on series in all major American and European as well series cities. Because, again, differences in law enforcement, but much like any other place, they all know virtually the details and how those things are being moved. Not my problem, though. I'm just pointing out perspective because I talked about law enforcement the other day. Either way. But furthermore, just pointing out the reason why, any career criminal, let's say that you actually something to do with that, he wouldn't be close to me because the document things are close to me only, and yeah, those things happen to be. So. Either way. But as I was moving on, and this is a big deal because this is not just commentary. I'm saying that I don't have any knowledge. I don't know who those criminals are that do those harm to me. This harm to me. I'm just speculating. And most of what I say on this front is also strong smell of clove washer. So in a place like this, what do you think to be someone washing clothes, like the ones you use in your washing machine? I mean, this is a truck repair shop. I mean, almost if it was a comedy, you wouldn't think a place less likely to be washing, your disgusting huge panties in the mirror. Sorry, I couldn't resist. It's just too much. This is like, okay, let's imagine again. Let's talk about comedy. Let's imagine this quintessential funny thing. You have the sad thing with the protagonist reacting about a very peculiar, particularly if it's a male. And that's it. So not diving too much further on that. And for what it's worth, in the same time that I felt the thing before, and I didn't feel that before, I feel that now. Presumably, if it's coming through the wind, it has the same source. The impacts of the things that they throw on the air, which in this case is almost backfiring because it calms me down, which is necessary to finish what I am saying. And the idea of saying as much as I can in a single point, precisely because it's going to be published immediately, and since putting all that there, I don't know how many opportunities I have to say those things without them drugging me and abusing me either way. So that's what we get. Okay? Nothing learned. It's been going on, as I said, for 3.5 years. Since 2022, when the criminals, the same arrogant criminals who leave their down on me, decide to show themselves to me in the city, thousands of miles away. In Niterói, Rio de Janeiro. My father was in terminal stage, and as I often say, I think that they were told that before I was, or even Tanya was, my mother, or used to be. These days she helps them more than she helps me. In fact, she doesn't help me at all, so that's not much difficult. But she helps them a lot, either way. And something hurting in this eye. No tears, no wetness, just hurting there. Imagine something coming from the air, but it could be also them trying to manufacture a scene. If that's important, because it showcases when they're being accused of being drug-related and the worst people on earth through actual examples instead of being by words. You have them actually throwing something to cause my eye to tear up, which, by the way, I'm not tearing up by any means. It is sad, but not to that point. And you can notice from my voice, my pattern voice, volume, pitch, everything, that I'm not actually that emotional. And for them to throw something in the air right now to cause my eyes to react, I should be irritated enough to tear when I'm not actually emotionally tearing, crying. Goes to show the mindset of individuals who would leave proof of their crime on the victim's body during the night and, as I said, show themselves to the victim. Because the idea there, if I understand, in 2022, in 2026, was, and say, how does that for 3.5? Well, because in 2026, it'll be 4 years in October, right? So, a bit more than 3.5, but not that much. As for the, I think it is, either way, we're now in March. As for the crime, again, by now, he's seen the videos. I'm telling you, but you can see that in the videos. All the cat videos are in the special folder. They'll be playing around, they'll be running all the way from there, and run. There's this giant bag, and he has to climb the bag. There's a sandbag as well, so imagine how many things were inside that bag. The cats, right? There's a surprise little gift for the cruelty. As for the by the way, if you find that tons of things like this, tons of minor incidents out of sheer chance, luck, karma for them, probably, if you believe either karma or God's punishment or whatever you say. Say, for instance, literally countless individual things when it just caused you to actually smile, giggle, or burst into what actually fun is supposed to be. Not when see someone being abused in the middle of the night while they are sedated and can do nothing about it, which is what they find funny. You see those faces everywhere, just absolutely, and you see the sheer level of joy. It's not something that they just casually acknowledge and they say, "Yeah, I can see how something." Even like the classical, girl watching boy being bullied scene, and they just kind of half-ass smile, but don't really into that. I'm talking about actual investment. You see them genuinely passionate about how they enjoy that. And again, you don't need to be a genius. They knowing that you're seeing. As a matter of fact, this is a casual point. Imagine how much they would if they did not believe they'd be seen by everybody else. This is them believing that everything that they're doing is going to be seen by the internet, because you all know how people on the internet tend to be lovely, particularly school people, right? And at the end of the day, for the things, as a matter of fact, that also reminds me of something which is they often like to praise me as a victim, as a criminal of their crimes. So that's the whole concept of true victims, as I often mock them about, by saying, they're the real victims here. Clearly, the millions of people, the real victims here. I'm quite sure that we have to phrase you a crime, but for what the things are, here in this city, they use enough drugs on me, on the shopping mall and on the bus, and in here especially, enough drugs to prove in video that enough times when they did that, and enough quantity, because you can see the way that those things just completely affect me as of now. Saw the effect they had on me, and saw how I'm talking now again. Compare before they released those drugs, after they released, when I said they released the drugs, after, and then now, the aftermath. And you can physically see in the video the impact that those are. Now, those are the torture drugs. Those released them on the mall periodically on me, I think periodically. As I know backwards, how about that? That's a bit talking. As of now, it would be retroactively 15th of February, the 1st of February, the 15th of January, 31st of December for sure. There might have been other days in between, but those are the ones registered. When I was doing the backup, it's checking out, and there's a period here. Where they would just release those drugs and not for me, and just keep releasing them. And see, this last one that happened, the second to last actually, because the last one, and there was the last one on the 6th. It was on the 1st of March, because I emphasized that already, but it was in the 5th to the 6th to the 7th. They start throwing down the 5th, and they stop throwing down the 7th of March. Then in the middle of February, right, 15th roughly. Then in the beginning of February, around the 1st. Then in the middle of January, again around the 15th. The 15th of January is literally the 15th. Because, seeing the backup, say, no by memory. So again, just putting all that. Might not be as organized on the file that was deployed, because those were deployed in day one, and those things are organized for the later stage. But I think that those ones are old enough. Yeah, they're old enough. I put the recent backup in the same place as the other backup, the original one, that I couldn't finish because last time I ran out of something. I think I ran out of water or food, and I had to leave. Something that they tried to do that this thing with their crimes. So yeah, there was one in March as well. It was just slightly delayed by 3 days or 4 days. Because of that. And even on the 4th, they're already throwing something on me. They're not just a torture drug yet. Those are being released on the 5th. So, keep that in mind. And following that as a schedule, so much so that they run into some issues, or my behavior kind of just puts them in a weird place to do those things. You can see that also very clearly for all the files if you pay attention, though I didn't mention that before. All of that is documented in video. All that is probably backed up in place. The road trip place, if you want to know, since I trust at this point with as much as I think, including the fact that I actually found the backup there. And they couldn't find it. I'm very confident that if anyone would, it'd be you. Don't think you will. I mean, you just with this information, you're going to find that through the other things I'm sending. But through this, is the same place. I mentioned where it is. Pass through the police, highway patrol. First road to the right, there's a tree. After that, I'm not going to give you any more instructions, because the place where I was, I can say, no, that's not much problem with that, was down from the tree, to the left on the first road that it is, and there is this patch of woods which you can zigzag, and you can get to zigzag because if you go straight to the road, you're going to get to the front of the woods, and then you to right, then left again, you're in the back of the woods, and that's what it was. Exactly on the corner there, and then a bit forward. By the way, as far as the crime for the criminal over there, I was not hiding, I was very explicit, and he much said that to the police. Quite literally, even though he was lying about saying that I was there for 15 days. Yes, he said that I was there for 15 days. All the videos you see of me in the mall, again, not even here, or like in my house, which, in the shopping mall, in the eating area, in one of the 2 shopping malls in the entire city. Most of the day, as a matter of fact, the entire day for some of those. So, that's a very interesting argument for you to make the police, knowing you're being filmed. But, again, and that's an accusation, by the way, that goes into official reports that he's going to sign, or at least tell the officer that he's telling the truth. Verbally, I don't know if they have body cameras, but either way, the officer's testimony is a witness. And it's technically his word against yours. No, sorry, not that one. It's his interest against yours. Because to say that, if you say that you didn't say that, which you hear him say in video, in my video, then you're saying that the cop is lying, which you know is not true, because as I said, he said that in video. You didn't get to see that in video, in this phone. So, you might try to lie about the thing, but that would be an implicit accusation upon the police officer, which didn't lie. I mean, he did say that. The guy said that to the cop. So, make it make sense. Right? About the Giants, by the way. And I also forgot to mention, as we often would comment on things that I would say. So let's say that, for instance, I mentioned one day, hey, I tripped over this. I remember a story back home when I was having an argument with my mother, and then she would have said something very unique, very specific, like, this bottle of gin, this place on this place, gets me annoyed, and from there an entire discussion came up. This is made up. I'm just saying as an example. On the same day, even though they never mentioned anything related to that, you would mention something about bottle of gin while talking to me, or some reference to the exactly same terminology that I had with my mother in a private call, or none of that published, none of that online, none of that anywhere. Which, to be fair, everybody else does as well. It's not just it, but I'm saying that it as well, which is irrelevant because of the other crimes that it does to me, as I just described. And some of you even get to see now in a few minutes, which is why I'm not bothering to close the things. Again, I'm going to close the things enough so they're not too much on the open in the nose, but not enough that it would be. Honestly, I might. Actually, you know what? I'm going to close everything enough because they are all predators. So by acting like a normal person and trying to clean the things, I thought several times when I said, it felt to me, although it's been a bit of an impression, you can turn that into fact so it stops being an impression. I'm going to do that in a minute. When I put the trash from my things that I left, sometimes in places, sometimes I leave things open, and then I pick up and I put in the trash as I did early, the plastic bag, and the bread that was in my hand. And by throwing that, it almost functions as a trigger for them to see, because the idea is that drugs on me worked so much that I'm complying, and because I'm complying, they're going to do something to try to take advantage of that. Other option is because they want them to blow out, and then they can be the real victims of the person who's just screaming and acting aggressively, and poor them. And because of that, you would have which to be fair, funny enough, applies to him. He actually treated me extremely poorly, and you can see that in the videos. And notice how much I don't mention that all that much, although I could. I mention more concrete things, like about saying that someone stole my things at that time, and he could have just act like a man and say, hey, look, I want you to remove the things in a reasonable time frame. It's not like tomorrow or like now, because that's ridiculous for a guy who's been living there for months, literally months. You can just say, hey, look, up to the end of the week, just pick up your things and leave. Which is funny, because not knowing what I was going to do, it would be very easy to do. The one time when I didn't remove, I went there and I said, hey, look, can I do that next week? Up to next week? It's another time to clean up. And then I went there and I said, hey, look, go there and check if everything's clean. He kept asking me several times that the things were out of place. Likely under the impression they would just lie to you, saying that several times he talks to me about cleaning it up. And every time after, especially the recent ones, I went there specifically and explicitly asked, Look there and see. If you want me to change something, you can change something. Because I saw it coming. Not this. I saw more, and he just saying that, trying to ask me to dismantle the thing, and then giving me time to dismantle it. That's more or less what I saw. To just throw things, a few things that a homeless person have away, in a way that even a child seeing that with no prior knowledge would know that, okay, that's not what good guys do. That was a surprise. And that's the thing. But all the faces you see in the mall, they would have seen all of this. All this unrefutable evidence that their side is the criminal side, is given to them prior to you seeing that face. And on top of that, just as the most ridiculous guy taking a shit on top of the cake, which is something in line for them. They're called piss and shit for a reason. It's not because they are clean and, nice. For that, you can imagine two things that actually visualize this crime better than a man defecating on top of the cake. The thing is, instead of a cherry, that is for reference, sorry, give me a sec, but with something being thrown in the air, I'm trying to get my brain to function again. They want you to know those things. Okay, it's not even like that they're doing that in secret, or they have creating grounds. They mention such specific things, such specific terminology, because again, it helps that I have my peculiar way of speaking, my peculiar way of doing things. Again, as I said, to call that thing from iRobot, my father gave it to me, mostly referring to God. Perhaps see, by the way, the point is, things have a purpose, and for what it seems to be a chance, at the end of the day, turns out to be beneficial, because they see them referencing things that in no way you believe that just came out of thin air. It's too specific, it's too narrow. And as I said, for all those faces. Now imagine you have a small child, and he wants not only you, but the rest of his family, but your small child that could otherwise want to work in a country that doesn't see things like this as fun, and see them as horrifying. You would imagine that, well, probably not that big of a deal, to be honest. I would, at least. For the child, it's going to be big implications for you or any other children you have that happen to be adults. I could, if that's not already going to do it. I don't even think I need to mention that, to be honest. It sounds stupid. But I will mention anyways. Don't apply guilt to small children or things that they don't even understand. If nothing else, they are also victims. They are actually growing up believing that human beings do things like that. And although as the victim of this, I have to say, they are bigger victims than their worst crimes. You cannot stress enough that those children are growing up thinking that assaulting a man while he's asleep by lowering and doing something in his pants, know he's wearing underwear, if he came from here. The other option is much better, I assure you. They stalk me inside the bathroom, inside the mall. Literally, they look through the door, not through the phone. The phone was not pointing me at any point, and testifying to that. That might be a phone, but it was on my phone. Any times, categorically. And things like this are not even necessary, because accidents can happen. I could just mention, hey, look, I was just glancing around. But particularly on that day, when you hear those fucking teenagers on a date mentioning about men's fucking underwear, a homeless person that is, because you all know how much that happens. Because it's not a big deal. I mean, homeless people often enough don't have type of clothes they don't wear, so that's not even like a huge discovery. Not something that would simply be interesting enough, but which mentioned in front of two girls or two boys, right? In a double date, presumably. Be like, huh? And notice that the problem I'm realizing now that the problem is not even like that they have too much knowledge. The problem is, why the fuck would they want to say that? Again, they're telling that a homeless person has tattered clothes because that's fucking revolutionary, right? You're making discovery right now in your date with girls about something gross involving what happened inside the pants of an underpants in a homeless person, because you always know that when you're trying to date and impress a girl, that is where you want the conversation to go to, the inside the pants of a homeless person. The discussion, that is. So, again, surprised. I was actually rather hoping that they would cause some problems, and I realized I should have been checking them off. face value. Now, you, as a grown-up 30-year-old man, who yourself was a teenager at some point, sees the scene, or reason me commenting on that, what would you think before you choose to involve your wife, which is a grown-up woman, which will face consequences, or your grown-up son next to you, which is also the same way, and the small child that I hope you understand they are also victims because they didn't have any choice in this, unlike the adults, and they say, that's the thing for me, that's my path to fame. What would you think? Again, certain things are very different, as you notice. Things you probably didn't expect to be that different about this culture, right? You look at other cultures for the rest of the planet, up to the whole way around, it is middle of the way, and you see, okay, those cultures are much different than ours, but when you see things like this in South America, I mean, trust me, the cat with the Indians, as the Native Americans here, was just as lovely as it was in the United States. So, yeah, it's essentially the same culture from Western Europe. So, except not quite the same. As a matter of fact, here don't even have Indian reserve. You have some of them who managed to actually hide away in the jungle, while the other ones didn't get you yet. Now they're getting. They're also not only getting that, they're just throwing the whole thing apart. But just saying that when I mention about culture, I'm talking about Native Americans. We're talking about, again. So, and just pointing out that in simple perspective too, as I said, law enforcement knows this. Matter of fact, one of the favorite things that they do these days was to throw drugs as I'm passing in a bus or by foot in front of a police station, because they think it's super funny that they will demonstrate something to me. And notice that I'm not saying that the cops are doing that. As a matter of fact, I don't see how the cops would stop that from happening, other than through long-term measures, right? Because anyone can just pass in front of that, see there's nobody around, and just throw something in the air that causes a bag or something or whatever. And that's my point. When you get to I mean, you don't need to be a genius, right? You're seeing people doing crimes in plain daylight. You see them bragging, gloating about it, and knowing that they're being filmed, and then somehow because up to now, I'm keeping the files. Occasionally I publish stuff on YouTube for precaution, like this one. And this one's going to be published openly, but it's still precaution. But for the press, is the one that actually going to deliver the punch. No, not this, because there's so many things that authenticate their faces, but the things to do. So they still date, liking events like this, as you saw happen during the night, or remotely, as you see happening other times. So during the night, it has to be everything that they would have access to. And you know what they have access to by just asking one of those individuals? In the little phone, had to have been stolen in the middle of the night, right there. Because even if they wait for backup days, like I didn't do on this day, because the phone I used for backup, that phone, the Argentinian one, and I wasn't trusting on that place, but that phone won't have been accessed remotely, so I chose not to. Instead, I saved the things in a very safe place, and doing the backups on any information you have from the small phones will have to have been collected from the phone itself. Like in one of those days when they sedated me with drugs, confirmed that I was sedated, as you see one of the days happening here in this shed. I was in the middle of the night. In a second, I think in the back. No, shoot going. Yeah, in the middle of the night, they have someone poking my leg, and me just blumbing and stuff like, ugh. And they saying something, and they say, yeah, as if I had said a word and not just whisper something in the middle of the sleep. I think I said some words. Nonsense that people who are asleep say. If you have asleep someone and you just poke the person's actually asleep. Some people say a couple words. That's completely meaningless. It's doing sleep. For you to say, yeah, later, as if you're talking in English, particularly yeah, which is not common in this language. And you have that recorded. Hell, I went down that day to talk to this guy. Hey, look, just figured out. And I was nervous. You could see my whole persona. I was agitated. I was desperate. I had just noticed that someone physically poked me in my sleep and then proceeded to do something. So much so I couldn't even listen to the finishing of the audio because I was so, And I go there to say, hey, look, can you check into the video? Because this happened in the middle of the night and I don't know what happened. I don't know how it happened. And I'm trying to get there. And it starts to talk about me showering. Just like that. Again, as I said, if you want to be the most hated person in the planet, you have to make just a little bit extra effort to accomplish that. Because for someone who's just being that, and you start to degrading the meaning on the sense of emphasizing mostly the fact of being a homeless person. Well, by the way, everything you see is a consequence of that. The closer that this color, not because of things that, see, when it started happening, but because of the things they throw in the air on me, and all the other things, the shoes they destroy, the pants, and the other pants, not so much this one, but the other ones, and the other things, right? Plus the fish, the animals. And I was like, just dude, I need to see the video. Someone went there in my sleep, and I have proof of that. And you'll be proof of that. Like, I have proof already, but you'll be proof to see video. And what I got to see was, apart from me in the middle of the night, was someone pretending to be me, putting their hands in the ear to talk in a weird way. I described that already in detail. There's someone pretending to be me, which is hardly a big stretch. The issue is, again, I don't remember the details. There's the details of that I said as it happened. And keep in mind, by that morning, I had been very drugged by them throughout the entire night. So, struggled to understand the best I could. But in the same way that they were trying to sell me things and then refusing to come here and see if the corrections that I made were correct, and instead of saying, okay, if you did that, that's fine, and then I'll show you a video that I did, and I'll save that video, and the video's in the backup alongside everything else. So, my argument was, why? And some of those things are very weird, and some of those things were like just verbal. Like, for instance, he used to look at a pile of trash that I was putting all the trash there to later put out in the same time, and he was like, what is this pile of trash? And I was like, I just put the things here. It was the most ridiculous thing. It was this point of saying, like, this thing, all the things that you want me to throw out, I'm putting here so I can go and throw out. It's 11 a.m., 11 something a.m. The sun is pretty hot. I'm not going to keep going down back and forth all the time for no reason. Putting everything here, and I'm going to throw out when I finish collecting everything. I'm going to ask if you want me to throw anything else. And he'll say, no, that's fine. I'm going to pick up and I'm going to throw it out. And he kept acting as if the pile that I just made, and I kept saying, hey, this wasn't here before. I just put it down when I'm organized. And he kept saying, he didn't care when it was made. He just wanted it out. And I was like, yeah, I know. I'm going to throw it out. And he wants to throw it out now at that point. So there's one or two options. Either there was some verbal crap that they were recording audio and to later use against me because they think that everybody else around the world is as stupid as that. And that, most importantly, that some criminal would have committed such an atrocious crime against me or my person and the evidence that I was collecting, that they would be able to, their audio survive as the only recollection of those events. Because that's the only thing that could be possible to allow their speech to make any sense at all. Because other than that, you're seeing that and it becomes self-evidently wrong because you're seeing in the video what the pile really is. And you're seeing that just my sheer face of astonishment as I point out the obvious fact that this is a pile of trash of reorganizing things. They intend to move away. That's why also when I seem to call Tanya, they seem to be so flipped out. Not because Tanya is the best buddy, it's because Tanya is made a witness to another thing that's going to be someone else responding to someone else aware of what is actually happening. But I'm not pointing just that. Because just that could be just a simple case of criminals trying to act criminals, right? Like a guy trying to blur the camera on a place. They know that some atrocious crime must have to be committed against me and against all the evidence to guarantee that that version of reality stays as the only surviving account of the events. And since then is why you have things on YouTube, since then is why you have things online, since then is why you have those copies. They're deployed in place. Even if something does happen to me, you still have access to the deployed copies. Since then, why you have the image? Since then, you have what you have, right? Now add up to the idea of having a police officer saying that identifiable information about a death threat in video, and a real one of that, is not relevant, or not even wanting to be shown that information. What kind of police officer would not want to be shown a real threat in video? And again, real threat. Difference between a real threat and a joke threat, a mock threat, is when you're passing a car and you say a random threat, because then it's difficult to stop who is saying that to, who is saying it, if that's real or not, whatever. When you stop and you keep buzzing and you wait until the person looks at you and you say, yeah, you, and you use love, whatever it is, or an identifiable thing, and you say that thing to that person in there, that's what we call a real threat. That's designed to function as intimidatory or as a way to gain something. That's why people threaten things, right? In this case, it was if I don't leave, they'll do something to me. And that happened one day before they kidnapped my cat, which is the only family member I had, because Tanya is whatever she is now. I don't know, but she's certainly not family anymore. And they did that one day before. This was the 11th of May. And the 12th, as I was right there in front, because I said they really want you to understand them being the worst human beings you can imagine. I was there in front of this place, and I was eating yogurt. You can imagine the things. I was right there, and I was eating yogurt in a pot. It was 10 something a.m. And as I was doing that, but something else about this place, I mentioned about the lies. You know what the lies were? That I was stealing something, because by then I had purchased some clothes. They want me looking like a beggar. So I purchased some clothes, because clothes are not that expensive, right? So a shirt was like 15 bucks, 15 Brazilian bucks, like $3. Depends, there were, I think, 50 or 40, I think they're 40 that day. They're like $8, $8, or, $7, $8. So grand total of $10 full set. For the $10 full set, you'll have the $10 full set. It's important. You would have there's more? For the $10 full set. Yeah, I was right there, in between the two doors. The two doors there. I was in between the front one and the second one, sitting on my boxes. So I have some of those boxes I pick up from the supermarket, and I was sitting there and I was eating my yogurt. I knew that scene was reminding me of something. I think that scene was watching a musical these days, and you have a chick who, by the way, and also eating, funny enough. That scene just touched me in a way. Anyway, I'm going to mention that. I think it's going to be too cartoonish and to diminish the. And as I was sitting there and I was eating it from the pot, between 10 something to, it was 10:25, roughly 10:20. It was past 10:20 a.m. And I was eating something that day after this death threat, right? My idea was simple. Okay, so on the crimes. In the same day, I talked to Tanya, I sent a video to Tanya, I make sure the video stays online, I uploaded it online to the backup, and I don't know if I uploaded it to YouTube, I will put YouTube as well, to stay online, to guarantee that whatever happens, the police officers have more than enough to investigate later, and knowing that there'll be some slightly, pressure from the good guys to investigate what happened to me, making sure that those things stay there, and I notified her that those things were there, and I even sent her one of the copies, was important, again, as you do. Other than that, knowing this crime as I did, I don't know what much other options I have. This is a controlled place where I know those things and everybody knows where I am. Go to another place, wouldn't be any safer. They track me, as you see every day. For normal people, that's good enough, but for me, with them tracking me, that wouldn't work. The next day, the idea was just report that on the police station and move on. The idea, though, is very likely understood why they made that threat, because they generally think the criminals who sedate me every night to abuse me, the criminals who die in a place that choose to do this because it keeps the scene safe, like to say that I'm a coward. So they believe that with that, they'll get me away from here and away from the place. Which I don't even know how much that works, because I would take my cat with me. So you know what? I said that for a couple of times. That doesn't make any sense. My cat's not like those cats. I would take her with me everywhere. If I leave, I'll leave with her. Although, to be fair, on that one day, you had the criminals inside the bus company. Yes, the same bus monopoly we mentioned before. By then, even now it's a bit less. But by then, there was like massive amounts of drugs inside the buses every time that I was moving inside. Massive as well, too. It's a very small area. I imagine that a couple grams would have the effect. It is an air-conditioned area as well, so top of that. And I don't know if those are narcotics, to be honest. I know this is a type of drug, but I don't know if they're narcotics. So to get advice on that one. I know that they definitely feel narcotics on me, periodically. It's just that those ones inside the bus were one of the main release points for those underpass at the beginning of Costa Silva, in front of the bus terminal almost every day, the interstate bus terminal. As the bus passes, not inside the bus. It's actually quite far away from the terminal itself. It's just in Costa Silva, at about the same place will be the general area of the terminal, where the street that goes to the terminal is. Nothing is coming from the terminal. I think it's coming from the building in Costa Silva. As an abandoned building is there. And as I'm saying, this is the welcoming thing for anyone arriving in the city. Either option A that's from just on me, which is what I'm saying virtually, or that is there. And in a touristic city, nobody cares that in the entry point you have a building with emanating drugs so much that you can feel like inside a city bus, a Uber bus passing front, which I think that's a bit of a tall ask, but pick a poison, I guess. The point is, and there are a couple others, like for instance here, right underneath the underpass of this new thing that connects to your country or Argentina, if you think that is harsh, you don't have any fucking clue what they did to me in Buenos Aires and in several other cities, and the sheer contempt you have, particularly also by law enforcement there. Much worse than here, by the way. Here you have a couple incidents involving law enforcement, but that's it. Usually more of passivity and turning a blind eye, as I described. In Argentina, you have active involvement in several situations, which are documented in video, in uniform, by the way, which you got to see that in detail, because, and I love to say that one, if you know me, still in sovereign soil, a copy of that, and they have no reason to suspect that they found it, much like I have no reason to suspect that they found the original backup here, over there in that place. Take some things that they say with a grain of salt. About the backup, I'm testifying to you like to choose my word. I have no reason whatsoever to imagine that they never made any reference to it, what it was. It's a very easy, right, to reference place. Let's leave it at that. And nothing came, so no, they didn't. And so it's showing southern soil. And especially say they stole a bunch of memorabilia-ish. Things that are important and valuable to me with no value to this, not even like value as evidence. And they stole, in an event involving uniformed police officers, criminals stole two, not only one, but two. Hey, knock it off. Two strong boxes from inside the same backpack. They, in front of the bus terminal in the city of Thieves, which is a city in Argentina, in Thieves, which is a Argentina state or province, I think it's called. They stole not one strong box, which would be egregious enough for you to try a theft in front of a bus terminal. This was not like in the woods, in the boonies, This was in the middle of downtown, in front of the bus terminal. I was waiting to take the bus to leave, and I just didn't take the bus before because they didn't allow me in. That same police officer in uniform. And I called for extra police officers by dialing 911 as well. All filmed. You can see all that in video. In Argentina, it's 911 as well. 911. And here's a different number, but either way. I think 102 also works there. And those guys came in after dispatch. So they were definitely police officers responding to a call, and even mentioned that they wanted to stop calling, and they threatened me with arrest by repeating things as if I was an imbecile, which you imagine some other type of mockery, because as I said, while they are being filmed committing a crime in uniform, by the way, is when they're trying to mock me for being quote-unquote stupid. And you still have that, because although they stole some of those things, those are still with me, and again, you see that one here saying there was a cow there for sticking. And by the way, the next day it was there for an initial amount of time. So you know that logic just takes a wild birth from certain places. Simple logic, that is. As for the, and yes, that's the point about the uniform. The faces are not that relevant, right? You can still see some. But even if you couldn't, that doesn't matter nearly as much, because the uniform is what counts. Those are actually uniform Argentina or whatever state that was, police officers. being part of stealing something that in the first day was not even like the documents because those are my pants. And then in second is stealing identification from a person, from a foreigner in your country, which is his own set of worms, tying up even closer to human trafficking than to anything else. So again, you have this whole huge can of worms. I don't want to dive too much on that, but just go to town asking this. But most importantly, as I said, and then you have the city personnel on that city trying to act as if it was a homeless person. Again, the textbook face of, and that happened with city works, social services, but I went in the town hall, the place that you have the police station right next to you in the city of Thieves, which the Argentinians call Concordia in Entre Rios, but the official name as far as anybody that matters is concerned is the city of Thieves. And there is indeed a reference to George R. R. Martin's work as Dothraki terminology. After all, that's what they do. I mean, that's what they did. When you get to the point of stealing someone you're already abusing with drugs for quite some time, and you care to steal things like family pictures and other memorabilia. But if you're saying, well, but they stole with the pack and they just took it out of the lot. Now, wait for that. It's in the Crimea. They, in front of the bus terminal, they searched through a homeless person